All right, well, we're playing Beat the Storm again, but I think I can get some of this done. I'm gonna go ahead and replace this sleeve. The other thing I got, URO is not something I would normally buy, but the only one I could find. It's just a little brass replacement for this guy. So we'll undo this. Try to be careful not to bend it. All right, success. Then we'll figure out how that comes out and how we get that one back in. From what I gather, I can just grab onto this thing, give it a little twist and pull it out of there. But I don't know if that's the truth. It's been in there for 20 years, at least. All right, well, you can see it's out of there. Didn't absolutely, totally destroy it. Wow. Probably gonna have to clean this up pretty soon. So yeah, I just kind of kept wiggling it, pulling on it. It finally popped out. What I'm seeing now is that I could have pushed it out from behind. I noticed that by realizing there's some silver paint on there. Guess I should have watched a video. Now you know how to do it in the future. All right, well, I got this most of the way in there. I just put this back on for now so I don't lose it. I also loosely installed my slave cylinder. I have the cable that goes off the back here. Might install it too before I get it back in the car. Not sure how I'm going to connect it up to the master cylinder. Probably going to buy a BMW one, try to get it to work with the pedal because it looks very similar. Okay, so I'm going to put this engine back in again. Got some more test fitting to do. Need to do some motor mounts. But what finally came is my TF Works oil pan. This is part billet, part handmade, TIG welded, high capacity oil pan. Baffles included. This is a real nice piece. Came with a billet oil pump adapter. I do not have the K20 pump yet, so we're not going to be able to put that on today. But I am going to put this on. I'm going to get it in the engine bay. And that way we can figure out some motor mounts while I'm waiting for the rest of the parts to come. That said, let's get at it. So the first thing we're going to do is get this guy in the air and take this plastic off. I'm going to put this oil pump on. All right, so now that we have this in full sketch height, we'll undo this plastic that I put on to keep some of the oil in and some of the dirt out, and put the oil pan on. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Got pretty filthy with the plastic on it. Doesn't look like I hurt my windage tray or anything. Setting it down on there. There is quite a bit of bond and stuff here. I'm not too worried about that right now. Get that cleaned out when we reseal it. This is going to be a dry test fit. Like I said, this is just so we can figure out some motor mounts while we wait for some parts. Well, I guess one thing I have to do is I have to get these pins off, because I do not believe they work with the oil pan. Let's just do a dry fit. See. Oh yeah, we're good to go. I'll double check, see if I have to take those out, but for now, I think we're fine. Like I said, there's still a bunch of sealer and stuff on there, and I'm not going for perfection today. We're just mocking up so we can make sure this is going to fit right. Because right now, this is a gamble. I have no idea if this is going to work. I'm looking here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. This gap doesn't want to go away. It looks as if there's a couple of nuts hitting here that I wasn't anticipating. I'm going to go grab the instructions, see if I need to take those out. Well, right here it says the windage tray must be modified to clear the new oil pan. Well, as you can see, reading the instructions works. Windage tray's out. This is a K24 windage tray. I'm going to need a K20 and then modify that. This one just popped out with 4 10mm bolts. Not a big deal. And fits nice. Looks good. Looks like it'll fit. But what I'm really concerned about is here. Especially this little dip. Doing my math though, this should set out further than I need it. This should be out of my way. My cross member should land somewhere in here. Otherwise, I just bought, granted, a really nice piece of yard art, but a very expensive one. So we'll toss it in there, see how it goes. All right, well, got it most of the way in here now. You can see it's all starting to line up pretty good. The oil pan is right where I needed it to be. And it's got quite a bit of room from the cross member to the front of the oil pan. I still need to level this out some more, and I'll end up pulling these. Got a pretty neat piece to put on there. I'm going to try to get the transmission jack underneath it so I can bring it up a little bit and bring the front down. And we should be good to put our motor mount faces in here. Start fabbing something up. Well, that looks like about as good as it's going to get. Transmission is a tiny bit high, interfering with the rubber piece that's in there a little bit. So bring that down just a tiny bit. But the engine is free. Sitting on the transmission jack, of course. But pretty good with my spacing back here. Pretty good with my left to right. Cleared my cross member, both sides. This side, it looks like I'm into the brake line a tiny bit. But I mean, I can bend that. Plus, I believe will be shifted over about there. And it should clear everything pretty nicely. Especially when that's where it's supposed to be. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Luckily, it's not yard art. It's ever so barely clearing. But it's clearing. And that's what we needed. Alright, well, my only option again was cardboard. I do have a tray that goes across the top. And the bar that goes across. And I should be able to lift it up. This does not look promising though. I've got the transmission jacked up as high as I can. And I've got the oil pan sitting on the cross member. I mean, there's 2 thicknesses worth of cardboard pressed flat. And that's the only gap that's in there. And the front of this still looks pretty high. I'm going to set this towel flat. Just so I don't scrape it all up. So I have the most amount of room. I'm going to put that hood on here, see what our clearance looks like. If we've got a gap, great. I'll just account for that when I'm building the motor mounts. And I'll even maybe lift it up a little bit. And we'll figure that out as we go. But if it doesn't fit now, which doesn't look promising, I think they make a lower profile valve cover valve cover. I might have to get that. Either that or we're talking cutting this cross member out and lowering it, and I don't have the means to do that. I'd either have to pay somebody to come over and do it, or I'd have to take the car somewhere. So let's hope it fits. All right, the moment of truth. Do we have a gap? We do. We've got a whole hand here, which isn't spectacular because that's about how much room I need to leave underneath the oil pan. Now, I can fit one finger comfortably. I'm gonna have to split the difference on that between the oil pan literally resting on the cross member and it hitting the hood. I do have a little leeway on the hood. You can see it's a little lower than it should be, especially on that side, which is luckily the high side of the engine. So I'm going to be able to bring that up. Maybe another finger. This might just work. This might just work. It sure will look cool in there, though. I mean, just take that in for a second. So next, I'll check my measurements, left to right, and I'll add probably 1/4 to 1/2 inch in my motor mount to account for the fact that it's sitting on the pan. After that, we'll lift it back up. We'll mount the mounts, make sure all that works. We'll put the hood back on it and cross our fingers. The next time we take this engine out, I have all the cooling parts for the most part. I have a swivel thermostat housing. I've got the back passage water housing. I'll have the oil pump, so we can mate up the oil pump in here. Fingers crossed, I'll have that correct pressure plate for the clutch. Maybe even have some motor mounts by then. Really going to try to knock that out. Then we'll pull the engine out. We'll get all that stuff in. Then we'll start figuring out the prop shaft. That's my next move. We'll have to do accessories and stuff, but I think I have a lot of room for accessories in here. I'm not too worried about that. And if the water pump housing doesn't fit, might have to go external. We'll have to see how that works. But there's a lot of cool stuff on the way. And hopefully we'll make some quick progress. Once we get all the drivetrain hooked up, that's when I'm going to get my wiring harness and my ECU. Then we'll be real close. The intake should be coming soon. Throttle body. Header, that's another story. I do not have a header set up yet. They make one for the E30. The oil pan fits close. It's real close, but it doesn't look the same as it does in the E30 chassis. Might have to go full custom header. We'll see. But for now, it's hot. I'm gonna go back inside.